Culturedog Sam Hatch back with some more videos, and I am known to talking about Laserdiscs on this channel, and I do actually have to delve into my collection of DVDs and Blu-rays. Every once in a while, I'm always expecting someone in the comment section below to be like, "You're a jerk, why do you watch Laserdisc?" Because I've had those reactions before when I've bought Laserdisc players in the realm of DVD, and people would just get offended by the fact that I would buy a Laserdisc player. So I keep waiting for someone to go, "You're a jerk, yeah, why don't you watch it in Blu-ray?" And no, I do have a Blu-ray collection and a DVD collection and a Laserdisc collection and a waning VHS collection. So I have to get into that stuff at some point. So I do promise I'll start contemplating how to arrange all that and get those series going. And on the front burner, I am still working heavily on the whole kind of Laserdisc Essentials, which may eventually blossom into like more of a home theater essentials situation. To just kind of get into the nitty gritty of the basics of the format and what everything means, what AC3 means, what Dolby Digital and DTS means to you, the listener, and all the other kind of weird things that you may have heard thrown around by enthusiasts, but don't really understand what it all means to you. So I'm gonna have that shortly, but I figured I'd do an update video. I don't have too many to update, but I figured I might as well get these out and about while I have them. Thanks to my buddy Rick from Laserdisc Forever, who runs 187 Vinyl in Levici out of Florida. He posts a lot of videos on Facebook with just actually all over the map, all sorts of stuff he picks up Laserdisc wise and resells. And he had a lot of comments, and there's a lot of comments I want to see, and that's, I mentioned before, that's kind of what I'm excited about collecting right now, is to see all the films that I probably would have gone out to see during the 90s or would have caught on cable but just never got around to. And it's amazing, the amount of films that come out on any given year. And after the boom of the independent cinema kind of explosion post Tarantino and Miramax and all that stuff, it's only gotten more and more prolific. So it's almost impossible to keep up with everything. So I figure there's got to be so many like kind of cool and or cheesy, mid-grade action flicks that I should have seen back in the 90s. So it's time to catch up on all this stuff. So I figured, at $1 a pop, let's load up on a lot of things. But first, this was a film that I actually was known as Pulp Fiction guy at a theater because I used to go see it so many times. And I was a huge fan of the film. And also Reservoir Dogs, but Pulp Fiction connected with me. I think I like Reservoir Dogs as a film more, but Pulp Fiction is near and dearer to my heart in a way, if that makes any sense. And I do remember living in Los Angeles, and my friend was probably around when this video came out. This was released in 1996, even though the film came out in 1994. I do remember sitting in the lobby of Miramax, the Los Angeles office where my friend worked, and seeing a sealed copy of this just as kind of office dressing, standing on the top of a countertop, and I'm like, oh my god, I so want this. And Pulp Fiction was a film that was it was weird. It was like a staggered kind of release of all the home video incarnations of it. It was heavily traded on the bootleg VHS circuit almost immediately because of places like Miramax, where they would very generously copy their own films and use them as kind of business cards, basically, to either express interest in certain actors or directors or whatever. They would just pass them back and forth between other studios, and stuff would get leaked out eventually. And then shortly thereafter, the Japanese Laserdisc of Pulp Fiction dropped, and it took a while for the domestic U.S. release, and it took even longer for the Criterion Collection box set of Pulp Fiction to arrive. And I'm definitely going to have to do a spotlight feature on this. It's a little bit of a mixed bag because it doesn't have all of the extras you'd expect, and possibly the film deserves. It doesn't even have a commentary track from Quentin Tarantino, though it does have a 1-hour Charlie Rose special. So yeah, I'm definitely going to do a Laserdisc spotlight feature. Unlike the previous version, this has AC3 Dolby Digital, and this is a THX release. And yeah, so it's one of those Criterion collections that may, leave leave you a little bit wanting in the end. Like, even the cover art, a lot of people don't like the cover art. They felt it could have been a little bit more dramatic. But you still have to have it. So I finally picked up a copy of this bad boy recently. And, we'll talk. We'll talk soon. This is a film I have no idea why I did not see in the 90s, because, I saw pretty much all the other Brett Leonard films, and maybe it was because I had Brett Leonard burnout, but surprisingly, this is like kind of one of the least tiresome kind of Brett Leonard situations, because he was in love with computer-generated imagery, and he didn't really go crazy with it in this, though it is full of craziness, virtuosity, and Russell Crowe, Denzel Washington, in a film that is far more fun than I imagined, and I can't believe I didn't see it till now. I'm going to do another Laserdisc Spotlight review on this sucker. So, shame on old me, or young me, for not seeing this film. This is a vampire cheese fest, and it's a Punch-Out, but I had to have a copy. Image Entertainment and Academy Entertainment presenting a... what year did this sucker come out? 1992 program content, 1993 release of Midnight Kiss. Yeah, so this will sit nicely next to my copy of the Fox film Blood Ties. Vampires, pre-interview with the vampire. So, but leading up to that, the books had already come out, so I'm sure they were influential on some of these films. But I'll put this in Blood Ties and Tale of the Vampire on a shelf somewhere. And this is Bruce Willis flick that somehow I did not see back in the day, from Rowdy Harrington. Whatever happened to and or who is Rowdy Harrington? But anyways, it is a flick with Sarah Jessica Parker and Bruce Willis called Striking Distance. And I almost went to see this in the theater, but I think I went to go see... Was this... concurrent with Jurassic Park? That might have been the one where I went to go see Jurassic Park instead. I'm trying to remember what year this sucker came out. But, 93, yeah, so it might have been Jurassic Park. And then I think I split up with my friends, and half of them went to go see Striking Distance, and I watched Dinosaurs. This I have seen pieces of, never actually sat through the whole thing, but Sidney Pollack's take on John Grisham's The Firm, Tom Cruise. It was one of those, things like Wayne says in Wayne's World, like Peter Frampton's Frampton Comes Alive, it would come with boxes of Tide. You couldn't not have a copy of some of these films in your collection. I gotta check that out. That was actually sealed, so thanks, Rick. This film I took a chance on because it is a rodder. It's a Columbia film, and Columbia used the Sony DADC plant. There are two DADC plants, one in Austria, which actually did clean pressings of Laserdisc for the most part, and then the U.S. plant, which was notorious for having rotted discs, and Columbia Pictures in particularly relied heavily on them, and a lot of their releases are rotted now. Thankfully, there's a number of those titles that had pressings done at multiple facilities, and you can get alternate non-rotted copies. This film, however, I do believe Columbia here in the States used DADC USA exclusively, so if you find a copy of this title, it's probably going to be rotted, so you're going to have to get it from Japan or something otherwise. But it was $1, so I got Air Force One, Wolfgang Peterson flick that somehow I never saw. I do remember this coming out maybe 1997 or so, and wanting to go see it. Yeah, 97, because I was a huge fan of Gary Oldman, who is the kind of baddie in here, and Harrison Ford. You can't go wrong with that. So I just watched this for the first time not too long ago, and there's laser rod on every single side of this sucker. But where I can still watch it on my own. I wouldn't necessarily have my friends over to sit down and watch it, but for me, it wasn't a deal breaker. I got to listen to the Wolfgang Peterson commentary next. This is another one of those classic films that for some reason I should have owned, but I did not. But I have seen this one, and I loved it. Executive Decision, the Kurt Russell film that everybody thought was going to be a Steven Seagal vehicle, and then Steven Seagal is barely in it, but Oliver Platt, however, does some killer work in this thing. Stuart Baird directed, and again, super common. I know, you're like, what is with all these commons? But I never had these things for some reason, and I could not resist for $1 a pop. This one, yeah, I saw on cable, barely, and the Executive Decision and Air Force One are both AC3 Dolby Digital, as well as is this one, and I saw it on cable, but I barely remember it. Ray Liotta and Lauren Holly in Turbulence, taking a wild ride on a plane, and I do remember seeing a lot of making of materials about this film, and particularly the super gimbal they had that could, rotate the plane set all around and freak everybody out. This I did also rent like way back in the day. It's a John Badham flick, pretty cool, and also AC3 Dolby Digital, but interesting and notable because it takes place over the course of an hour and a half, basically. So it's going in real time because it's an 89-minute film with Johnny Depp, Nick of Time, playing a character kind of dragged in over his head in a situation and must do things against his moral fiber in order to save those he loves, with Chris Walken in there as well. So it was a no-brainer to pick that up. This sucker I saw in the theaters back in the day. I actually was not a Shakespeare fan in high school, like most kids weren't, until I became an angsty youth in my senior year, and then I just totally fell in love with Hamlet. And then retroactively with the rest of Shakespeare's material, I ended up becoming like a Shakespeare Psycho fan for a while. So I actually dragged my parents out to go see Franco Zeffirelli's Mel Gibson version of Hamlet. And I was sorely disappointed in the fact that the turning point of the play, basically, in this film was excised. If you've never seen or read a version of Hamlet, it's young Prince of Denmark who suspects that his mother worked with his uncle to have his father killed so that his uncle can usurp the throne. And there's a pivotal scene where Hamlet, he's one of these characters that you think may be crazy, or is he just playing crazy to kind of meet a certain agenda? And it's all in the name of finding proof. And then eventually there's a scene where he gets his proof and it's time to act. And that's the turning point of the play where, you kind of slip too far into madness and you fail to do what you set out to do. And there's a very pivotal portion of that they left out of this. But the Kenneth Branagh version, I believe it was in there. That said, this still solid flick. Glenn Close is great in here, and I love the Franco Zeffirelli Shakespeare adaptations. Romeo and Juliet I have on Laserdisc as well, so I had to pick that up. This I have to do a Laserdisc spotlight on. I remember renting this back in the day and thinking it was a steaming turd. Kevin Costner is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Guess what? It's still a steaming turd. Kevin Costner, I'm not a fan of. I always said he can play a boring guy or a Southern guy or a boring Southern guy. And that was about it. And he doesn't even attempt to bring any kind of English behavior, accent, anything to the table. He just struts on like he walked off the set of Field of Dreams. And so yeah, we're gonna get into this sucker because I figured I'd give it another shot. And it still stinks, and I'm totally glad I own it on Laserdisc. So yeah. This sucker came in the wake of Time Cop, Peter Hyams teaming up again with Van Damme, and for some reason I've never seen it, but it's a hockey action movie with Powers Booth, and Sudden Death is its name, so I actually have to watch this one. I haven't seen it yet. This I remember getting panned quite often when it was released, the kind of dark comedy. But then, after the fact, I started to hear people who loved it. Ted Demme's kind of twisted comedy, The Ref, with Dennis Leary. And being a Swede myself, or Swedish-American, there's a St. Lucia festival kind of spoof in here, so I have to check that out. Because I've been going to St. Lucia festival since I was a kid. So, gotta fire this up soon and see who was right and who was wrong. This I saw in the theater, and Dolby Digital, THX, Digital Surround, widescreen, all that good stuff. I was really not a huge fan of some of this film, and the characterization seemed like very uneven, and I'm hoping this version of Ron Howard's flick with Mel Gibson is a little bit stronger, because this is a extended version with 18 minutes of extra footage of Ransom. And this isn't available on any other format, so Laserdisc is the way to get it. So I'm going to rewatch this and see if it holds up, or if what I disliked about it originally is still kind of a fatal flaw, or if this is a little bit stronger with the longer cut. This, I remember seeing trailers like a mofo back in the day when I was going to films on a daily basis, basically, and I have no idea how I didn't see this in the theaters, but it's a 95 J.F. Lawton flick called The Hunted, with Christopher Lambert and Joan Chen and John Lone from The Shadow as well. So I'm going to give this guy a spin up at some point. Check it out. And finally, I do believe this is Pan and Scan, or at least open. It's probably open matte. I remembered hearing about this film, David Sally film, and it's one of those kind of mid-90s Miramax era, though it's not. It's October Films and Evergreen Entertainment. But it's in that kind of, post Pulp Fiction, Miramax era, independent film kind of boom. And, of course, it's got Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper, who, were in True Romance together, and John Turturro, Search and Destroy. Also in it, Griffin Dunn and Rosanna Arquette, Ileana Douglas, Ethan Hawke, and so definitely indie movie gold right there. I have never seen it, so I'm looking forward to checking it out, and hopefully it holds up to its reputation. And I'm guessing it wasn't Panavision 2.35 to 1, so it'll be okay. Open matte. I could probably even just matte it myself. All right, so that should get us up to date with the Laserdiscs, and I'll probably have some more on order sometime soon, and fill in a few more gaps. There's some Criterion discs that I still need to get, some box sets, a couple Japanese releases, etc. But I'm gonna, slowly work my way through the spring season and take care of a few other things, and then binge on Laserdiscs. Yeah. So hopefully you guys had fun, and we'll see you with some more of these for some Laserdisc Spotlight features shortly. So cheers.